No, there's a that's great, but when I know I love it.
There isn't a good choice.
All right, sounds good. We're gonna, it's 6:02. We're gonna call to order the regular session of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District Board of Commissioners. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Norton,
Present.
Commissioner Benson, Commissioner Newman,
Here.
Commissioner Dale,
Here.
and President Coleman.
Present. Like to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Report on closed session.
No reportable action.
All right, and we'll move on to public comment. This portion of the agenda allows the public to speak to the board on various issues not itemized on this agenda. A member of the public may also request that a matter appearing on the consent calendar, which is directly below on the agenda, may be pulled and discussed separately. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the board may not take any action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to speak for a period of 3 minutes regarding each item that is on the agenda, and then each speaker is limited to speak for a period of 3 minutes during the public comment portion of the agenda regarding items of special interest to the public not appearing on the agenda. Would anybody, within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners? That's a good caveat there. Would anybody care to make public comment? Please.
Sebastian Elwright, Aqua Rodeo Farms, Humboldt Bay Oyster Tours, and Humboldt Bay Provisions. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 R's, and that pertains to dredging. The first R is resuspension. During construction, dredging is an inevitable and dislodges bedded sediment into the water column in a sensitive area. This creates dynamic heterogeneous turbidity plumes that can travel far into the surrounding environment, threatening sensitive ecological receptors like seagrass beds, shellfish, and migratory fish. Release, the second R, occurs when the dredging process transfers contaminants from sediment pore water and disturbed particles directly into the water column. Even during standard construction dredging, the severe disruption exposes buried sediments to water, rapidly dissolving historical contaminants that can increase short-term dissolved contaminant releases to 1 to 3 orders of magnitude above pre-dredging levels, making these toxins highly bioavailable to pelagic organisms. The third R, residuals, represent the sediment left behind, either completely undisturbed by the equipment or newly generated by the dredge. Generated residuals typically settle as a thin, highly erodible fluff layer of fine-grained, low-density sediment at the water bottom interface. In sensitive habitats, this unsettled layer is prone to immediate resuspension by natural currents, fundamentally altering the physical and chemical state of the natural seabed. Risk encompasses the ultimate ecological consequences of the construction. Short-term risk in a sensitive area are driven by acute exposure to elevated suspended solids and dissolved chemicals, which can trigger immediate toxicity or disrupt fish migration and spawning habitats. Long-term, the remaining residual sediment layer can smother existing benthic communities and create persistent new pathways for food chain bioaccumulation, prolonging the ecological impact long after construction ceases. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there? No. Go ahead.
I didn't think I'd say anything, but thanks, Sebastian. Bill Rich. I'm the owner of Seahorse Ranch, Shellfish Farms. At Seahorse Ranch, we have the Mad River Slough Shellfish Nursery, owned by myself and my wife. We are in our second season. Also, Humboldt Bay Oyster Company uses our property as their upland facility, and North Bay Shellfish. This is an Upper Mad River Slough. Commissioners, if you've not already been to our facility in Upper Mad River Slough, I personally invite you right now to come and take a look. I'll give you a tour of the 3 farms that operate from my property there. I'm very proud of that, and I think it's unique. I would like to say two points. The Wadouche project, Lagoon project, which is occurring on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service property, which is right next door to us there at Seahorse Ranch, is a project that I just want to say thanks to Chris Mickelson for helping me and my neighbors kind of navigate that project and including us on the weekly notes. So thank you. There's lots to talk about that project. That's not why I'm here. I thought I would just mention that at the Mad River Slough Shellfish Nursery, where my wife and I are in our second season, growing little baby clams by the millions and millions and millions. We're really excited. This is our second season for us as owners, and things seem to be going really well. The slough is filled with algae, and they're consuming like crazy. These things are doubling every 10 days in size, and it's hard to even keep up. I took a trip. We ended up with about 5 million animals recently. This was a truckload, literally a truckload of my pickup truck, filled to the top. I couldn't take anything more. Drove to Olympia, Washington as fast as I could to our buyers. Wow. Have you all been to Taylortown? I encourage you to go. Humboldt Bay Shellfish community is kind of small, and you might not understand what's going on until you go to Taylortown. You pull into Taylortown, and there are semi-trucks. Like we saw 20 semi-trucks, big ones. Taylor Shellfish. Where are they all going? I asked. They're going to the airport. There's stuff's getting on the airplanes. We went to Chelsea Farms to deliver some of our larger 1/4-inch clams, about this big. Chelsea Farms is a world player in gooey duck clams. Right next door to them is one of our biggest buyers called Brenner Oyster Company, 5th generation with Bruce Brenner. He is super supportive of my wife and I. He'll buy as many clams as I possibly can grow. The appetite for seed clams in Washington State right now, I don't think I'll never meet it. I'll never meet it. And you guys, we could get more clam growers here. I'm not sure we'd ever meet it. Humboldt Bay is the shellfish nursery for these mega players in Washington. The shellfish community in Washington State and Puget Sound, I kind of think, maybe Greg could help us with this, but I kind of feel like it's akin to the wine industry in California. And thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. And did you mean right now for the tour? Because all meeting, let's all go over.
Schedule. We'd love to have you, Stephen. You are our commissioner for that area.
Mhm.
We'd be just happy to have you and talk more about this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take advantage of that.
Come
Yeah.
if you can at a separate time or whatever. We're ready to have you over to visit.
That's worth it.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Madsen. I live in Samoa. I have my own obvious concerns, but to me, our crucial thing is not to bring in something that's going to kill the biggest producer of income we have and the most important provider of food. I don't want to turn into Oakland. I want to be a place where we have maybe a lot of small, interesting things to do instead of a big project that's going to potentially wipe out a lot of people who have lived here for generations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment tonight? All right, seeing none, nobody online. We'll move along to the consent calendar. I can do it.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Items on the consent calendar pass. Communications, reports, and correspondence received.
No correspondence received.
Do we have any executive director report or staff report? Oh, there's the executive director.
I'm going to keep it real simple tonight. I know we didn't meet in May, but lots going on in the meeting tonight. So I'll just hit some quick highlights. Get get my button working here. So attended the Offshore Wind California Summit in Long Beach towards the end of May. It was very exciting to see the turnout. I think we were probably maybe 350 people, perhaps more. I don't know. It was a remarkable turnout from Humboldt County. I would say we were probably 10% of the room. It was great. It was fun to spend time with everybody. There was a lot of learning, and there's still a lot of excitement in and around the industry and moving renewables as a whole forward. We received a CDP interim use extension today for, well, that's not exactly what that was. It was a seawater intake. I'm sorry. As many people know, there's been some challenges in around our proposed project with Nordic Aquafarms at the Heavy Lift Marine Terminal. So we're in a very serious spot in trying to preserve all the associated permits. So we're trying to make sure that we have all the permits in place for that project. So as I misspoke on the CDP interim use inspection or extension is the permit that allows us to conduct non-coastal dependent uses at Redwood Marine Terminal until such time as we have a CDI user, and then ultimately we would have to do a relocation of those people or other options. Hopefully we can relocate them in our own facilities, if not potentially off-site. We know we don't have that volume of coastal dependent users right now. So through work from staff here previously at the district, they were very successful in getting a coastal development permit, a CUP, conditional use permit, and that interim use allows for 7 years of firm term with a 3-year option. So we were timed for our option, so we exercised that, had a public hearing, and we're successful in getting 3 more years. We still continue to work with the county. We're looking at a port overlay zone because we just don't have the CDI demand out there. We need to make sure that these properties are operable and that they're generating the revenues necessary to take care of them. So sorry about my misspeaking there for a minute. A lot of permits that we're always working on. We had our county 2x2, which happens each month with county staff, 2 supervisors, 2 of our commissioners. Appreciate you participating in that. Commissioners Dale and Coleman. Met with the National Wildlife Federation the other night in regard to the proposed heavy lift marine terminal project and other district initiatives. They have a new staff member up in this region, so it was very nice to meet him. He also attended our aquaculture committee meeting recently and met some of our consultants and those that have been serving in district capacity for some time. The Army Corps of Engineers is staying on its 2026 dredge schedule. We're very, very excited about that. Before I get to too much detail, that allows chip ships to come in. So we just had another chip ship turnaround. It's headed for Japan with a load from the Green Diamond export dock. There's also something really, really big in the water right now. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but there's a cruise ship in here. Thank you, Mindy. Mindy's been putting an incredible amount of effort in on this ship. She was there all day today and probably going to be back there tomorrow. This is the World. This is a liveaboard ship that has visited our port previously, and it'll be here through, is it 2300 tomorrow? They leave at 11? 2100. So nice overnight. They'll be able to enjoy a number of excursions today, Friday night market. So a lot of great work there with the city of Eureka and also the county of Humboldt and visit Humboldt. So the ACOE dredge Yaquina came in and did some federal channel work in and around Humboldt Bay. So that work is complete. That's excellent. The dredge, the Esseons, came in and did significant work in the Barn Entrance Channel. And that material was taken for nearshore placement for the Army Corps of Engineers nearshore placement demonstration project. That's year 2 of that project. Very successful. We'll get results as we move forward. USGS supports them and the surveys and supporting that project, but that's now complete. And as we speak, we know that Manson was awarded the West Coast Dredge Hopper contract. So their dredge, the Bayport, is inbound for Humboldt Bay. And it'll come in here. There is a cut time where they have to go north. If they can't complete all of the work in the time before heading north, they'll come back later in the season and complete the dredging. We're on target for 1.3 million cubic yards of dredge material to be removed again this year from the barn entrance and the channels in Humboldt Bay. So this is a very strong commitment from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They continue to engage with staff. They continue to engage regionally. They are very focused right now on beneficial reuse of dredge materials. That's not all dredge materials, but those that are found to be suitable. So we're excited about that. We want to recognize their efforts and their work. And that's my report for tonight. Oh yeah, quick little plug. Don't forget, you can get your captain's license. You're going to be seeing this from me until the cutoff time, but we are trying to recruit people to get captain's licenses here in this area, everything from a 6-pack all the way on up. So if there's any interest, there are scholarships available. The Harbor District is sponsoring one person to go to this class. If you have that experience, you have that aptitude, or if you know of someone that does, this is still out there and available. And now that's my report for tonight.
Thank you.
Not online. Oh,
Are you checking
he
for
just
Rob
he
for
just
development
texted, yeah.
director report?
One thing I failed to mention is that we do have a public meeting coming on June 24th. We have a number of technical experts speaking as well as a panel. It's in and around the proposed heavy lift marine terminal. And that'll be at the Arcata Community Center at 6:30 on June. I don't know if I've got the time right. I'm sorry, 5:30 at the community center. We are going to have rides from the town of Samoa. We'll have a van running, and there'll be presentations again from technical experts. There's going to be a panel, and in addition to that, there'll be a number of stations that'll be interactive that people can go to speak with subject matter experts, those working on the project, community members, and again, June 24th at the Arcata Community Center.
Thank you, Chris. So does Rob have a report?
Hi, can you hear me?
There we go.
Just turning up the volume on you.
All right. I'm in Baltimore right now, and it's 9:15 p.m. and 92 degrees. I've never experienced heat like this in the dark. I look forward to giving a report on what I'm doing here in Baltimore at the Maritime Institute of Technology and Graduate Studies. Really remarkable work I've been able to witness this week for the Heavy Lift Marine Terminal project. So I'll present that to you next month. I'm glad that Chris brought up the public meeting, June 24th, Arcata Community Center, 5:30. And that's all I've got at the moment.
Thank you. Travel safe.
Thank you. District Council is not here. Treasurer,
Not this evening. No engineer, just our planner.
engineer. So
Our loyal planner.
they put you down here at G, so going through everybody else, but yeah.
So I will keep it brief as well, but just continue to review and process upcoming Harbor District permit renewals with applicants and permit holders, working on the subtitle Mariculture Pre-Permitting CDP request for a 10-year extension, which was submitted to the Coastal Commission, and we're working on responses to their additional information request. The Humboldt Bay Water Intake CDP, Chris kind of mentioned the extension for that was approved by the Coastal Commission this morning. And then I will be reviewing the county draft Humboldt Bay area plan updates which got recently released. And we'll be working with staff to review those and prepare a comment letter if needed on behalf of the district. And that's my report.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, moving on to commissioner and committee reports. All right.
Nothing here either.
Well, I will, I went to the Offshore Wind California Summit with Chris, and I was not prepared for as much positive energy as we got. I thought that it was, there's a lot of continued support in the state of California to do this. And I think, I thought it was one of the better meetings that I've been to. It was definitely a little smaller, but it wasn't as much talking heads. And there's definitely a huge contingent in the state of California, both at CEC, Public Utilities Commission, and the governor's office that are moving things forward. They're still continuing to do their work. And there are a lot of smart people working on some of the conditions that are going to allow us to succeed. one of them being transmission. So I thought that was interesting. Other than that, I don't have a lot to report.
Thank you. Let me see. Just before I came here to the meeting, one of my colleagues at work let me know that the Trump administration or the federal administration withdrew I don't know exactly how to say it, but they resigned from the lawsuit of New York versus Trump or whatever it was called, but the one that resulted in the offshore wind ban. What exactly that means and the ramifications, but they're no longer, I guess, defending that lawsuit. It looks like you want to tell me what it means, but I okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that to me. I'm not a regulatory expert by any means, although I sit in far too many regulatory type meetings. In terms of the district's community meeting coming up, I unfortunately will be in a work-related meeting on energy efficiency programs down in Southern California. So I will miss that, but wanted to just state that, I hope that there's good attendance at the meeting. The board here takes public input very seriously and want to work to hear that as much as possible and make sure that any development, marine terminal or otherwise, is done maximizing the benefit to the community at large. So, and then I want to talk about the recreation aspect in our name, which sometimes gets overlooked a little too much. And this past month, I've been paddleboarding on the bay, been biking on the Bay Trail. In fact, so much that my day job, Redwood Coast Energy Authority, won first place in Bike Month nationwide, which we're very proud about. And then this past month was also, I don't know what number it was, but the running of the Grand Kinetic Championship, Kinetic Sculpture Race, one of the great events here in Humboldt County. And I know there's at least 2 teams represented in the room here. And that was a great event for the county. And kind of adjacent to that, if people don't know, on Saturday, there's going to be an event honoring Dwayne Flatmo in the back of the Arkley Center, where his big mural of the dancer is. They're naming an alley after him, and he's going to be out there with that giant octopus of his that shoots fire very many feet up into the sky. So I think Dwayne Flatmo is also a great local legend. So if you're around Saturday night, that's a great event to go to. And that's what I have. So moving on. I am going to, are we still wanting to move item A of new business? I'm gonna
I'll make a motion that we move, we just haven't done unfinished business, but I'll make a motion to move item A to item F. Or at the end of the meeting, so that we can give John his resolution at the end of the meeting when he's half asleep. No motion, nobody.
I'm not hearing a second.
I need a motion to move this up.
Move this up. Do I even need, as
You're the board president. You
board
can-
chair, I
can
can
set-
just go ahead and do, it's one of the few things.
There's
that
no
I can
harm
do.
in having an emotion, but you can
I can just
renumber
go
the
ahead. No,
agenda.
I'm just gonna go and exercise my authority and say that we're moving item A of new business as the next item. So this is consider adopting resolution 2026-06, a resolution commending Captain John Powell for his service as bar pilot on Humboldt Bay.
Before you read the resolution, I just want to comment on John's remarkable journey. We put in the staff report, John started as a deckhand. He ended up as our chief bar pilot. I was very integral and very committed to training of our latest bar pilot, Andrew Manning, and his dedication, the skills that he has bestowed upon others, and his deep commitment to here deserves considerable recognition. He also served through that time here with a perfect record. No incidents, no challenges, no complaints. So that's pretty remarkable, especially given the severity of our barn entrance. I think we recognize John as a mentor to others, not to mention his good character and great behavior. So I really am happy the board's hearing this tonight. and excited that that we're honoring John.
Great. So, any comments, or should I just go ahead and
Go
do
for it.
resolution? And for not making it too long, but it's resolution number 2026-06, a resolution commending Captain John Powell for his services as bar pilot on Humboldt Bay. Whereas Captain John Powell was born and raised in Crescent City, California, he started commercial fishing with his father aboard the Welcome at a very young age. At age 17, he began working for Crawley Maritime, assisting the fuel barge into Crescent City. He married his high school sweetheart, Kay, in 1978, and they raised 2 children together. John and Kay moved to Eureka, where John continued to work with Crawley on the Humboldt tugs. He left to sail on offshore tugs and came back to become the captain of the famous tug pilot boat Thor with his mentor and teacher, Captain Art Christensen. And whereas Captain Powell came up through the hawse pipe, having started as a deckhand and working his way up to become a pilot, and whereas in 1985, Captain John Powell was recruited by Humboldt bar pilots Captain Hoey, Captain, I don't know how to pronounce all these names, Bessalou and Captain Olson, and became the youngest pilot for Humboldt bar pilots, being licensed on February 6, 1986. And whereas Captain John Powell was fully employed as a bar pilot beginning January 1, 1988, and became licensed as a state bar pilot through the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District on January 1, 1995. And whereas Captain John Powell worked for the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District as a bar pilot from October 16th, 2006 to August 22nd, 2014, when he became a bar pilot for the Humboldt Bay pilots. And whereas in the spring of 2008, Captain John Powell took a leave of absence from the Humboldt Bay Harbor District in order to operate a vessel Coos King for Knutson, as their captain had a medical emergency and there were no other qualified tugboat captains. This act averted potentially significant impact on commercial operations on Humboldt Bay. And whereas in July of 2010, Captain John Powell was recognized by Sea Grant, California for his time, expertise, and vessel support for the Humboldt Bay and Eel River estuary mapping verification. His involvement contributed to the successful collection of over 130 habitat verifications and resulted in ortho-rectified digital imagery of Humboldt Bay and the Eel River estuary that surpassed the quality of previous images. And whereas Captain John Powell's dedication to Humboldt Bay was proven as he pushed back his retirement for over 3 years in order to recruit and train his replacement, and whereas Captain John Powell retired in 2025, having served Humboldt Bay the longest and with no at-fault incidents, and whereas Captain John Powell has left a lasting legacy with numerous positive accomplishments. Now, therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District does hereby resolve as follows: that the commissioners and staff at the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District do hereby express our heartfelt appreciation for the best efforts and contributions of Captain John Powell as a bar pilot, and herein wish him the best in all his future endeavors. Passed and adopted by the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District Board of Commissioners at a duly called meeting. Well, I guess we have to vote and pass it first before I can read that part.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2606.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or discussions?
No, impressive.
Yeah, thank you very much for your service. Appreciate it. Go on.
I'll say, I mean, I have always been impressed with John. He has got a really straightforward, easygoing way about him and what he does, and it's certainly appreciated. And thank you, John, for everything you've done for this bay and for the businesses around this bay.
Thank you.
I'd like to second that. I've worked with Captain Powell on some of the boats and through the district work here, and nothing but excellence. Thank you very much.
Super.
And echo the same sentiments. Every encounter I've had with you has been great, and appreciate all that you've done. And Enjoy retirement. All right, I guess it's a public items. Any comments or statements from the public?
I'm gonna talk.
Yeah, better get that timer going.
That's where the roast begins.
Yeah, I'm gonna get even. I'm gonna get even. I'm gonna tell you something. I shouldn't tell anything, but where's that other pilot? Close your ears. You know, all those years that you sent me down to the corner to see what it was like, I lied to you. Just teasing, just teasing. Rich Traeger taught me that trick. So everybody gives John all the credit, but you know, Kay, his wife forever, she's known as the Admiral. I've heard many stories from the old group of when John was working offshore, how they would actually toss her to the tug when it was coming in, so he could be with her. When a ship's coming in, they notify the agent first, and we call the pilot and get it all set up. We didn't call John, we called the Admiral and said, is there any chance that John can bring a ship in a couple of days? And she would say, well, if he gets his dishes done. It's true, you know, I've been here forever. You've got, and I've known a lot of the pilots during that time. And there's two very outstanding pilots. And that's Bessalou and Hoey. And John goes right up there with them. I mean, in time, or actually his time, he'll be when he's doing something, he can say he was the best. They're the best. We worked together for many, many years on many, many projects. John has brought in cargo ships, chip ships, cruise ships, submarines, tall ships, research vessels, crippled ships, dead ships. He's done them all. There's probably not too many people alive or in the past that have the knowledge of Humboldt Bay. Not just Humboldt Bay, but the entrance, the jetties, the shoaling, the offshore current, the weather, and what's going on. The new pilots today, they're spoiled brats. I mean, they've got more computers and stuff in front of them than an aircraft carrier. When John started this, you basically had a compass, and you might had an old radar that you stuck your head in to see where the hell you were going. He did come up through the hawse pipe. He was trained by the best in those days on the most famous tug of Humboldt Bay, probably that and the Rangers, the tug Thor. He started out with the Thor, one of the boats he started out with. On the Thor as a deckhand, as an operator, as a pilot boat operator, and then became our youngest pilot. John, but wrap it up, gotta wrap it up. Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Have fun retired. I'm next.
Thank you, Leroy. Any additional public comment?
I'd like to say something. I just wanted to say that all you guys here at the table know me well, but growing up on the waterfront here, I've been here my whole life. Know Greg, Aaron very well. Don't know you too well, but anyways, just you know, from a kid rowing my boat around the waterfront and whatnot, and then you know, my dad, Leroy, he worked on the water, but he also built cabinets. And he did John's Kitchen when I was very, very small, and being around him. And I just remember going over to Art Christensen's house, the old pilot boat operator of the Thor. And he had this bronze model of the Thor on his coffee table. And I used to look at that all the time. And he would talk about, you know, someday you could be doing this, you know, run a pilot boat or whatnot. And then John has that now. But the transition that I've seen in my life, as far as like being that little kid, you know, idolizing guys like him and Gil and looking up to my own dad, to working on the deckhand with Gilbert, as a deckhand for Gil, and then eventually earning the trust of John to put him on the ships, for the last long time now, 10 years basically. It means a lot to me, and I really have a lot of respect for him. Everything that he's taught me, as well as things that we've gone through with barges or ships or whatever it may be, or just talking about the rotary current and the entrance, Gilbert. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate him, and I've always respected him very much. And congratulations, Captain. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further additional public comment? Yep, please, come on up.
I did not be speaking today, but that's my dad, John Powell. I'm his son, Darren Powell. Growing up with him was just an incredible experience. As Cody just said, like I get to look at this brass or bronze tugboat. My whole childhood was just fishing, like lots of salmon fishing. I learned how to do tons of knots. Like if I had a question, my dad had the patience. Like no matter how much crazy stuff I got into, but he had an answer for everything. Very intelligent guy, very smart, just eating tons of salmon, learning about which fish to catch, where to catch them, like just a really great time growing up with them. And I'm looking forward to your retirement.
Appreciate it.
And that's the reason he got into tugboats, because his dad was a commercial fisherman and John would go with him. And John couldn't catch any fish back then either. So he said,
All right, going once, going twice. Okay, come on up, John.
Well, thank you for this. This is an honor.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Spent all my life doing this, it seems like. So, and I feel like I'm in very, good shape for retirement. So I'm just gonna kick back and have fun with my grandkids, my fishing crew. There's 6, 8, and 11. So all 3 boys, and I got a boat big enough to carry everybody. So yeah, but yeah, a lot of faces I recognize here. Even this guy. Bud and Sebastian, yeah. I'll be back. I won't go away. So thank you very much. It's been an honor, and I hope Andrew has as good a luck as I've had. And I think he's going to be a great pilot for this place. With that, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, well then let's make it official. We have a motion and a second. I believe we have a motion and a second, right? All those in favor signify by saying.
It's a roll call vote, sir.
Oh, it's a roll call vote, sorry.
Commissioner Dale,
Yes.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
and President Coleman,
Yes.
with Commissioner Benson absent.
All right.
Motion passes. You may retire.
Thank you, John.
All right, moving on and back to 10A, unfinished business, receive status update regarding the Humboldt Bay Offshore Wind Heavy Lift Marine Terminal Project. I believe there's going to be an online presentation.
Yeah, we'll see if Rob's still online, if he's going to unmute, and then we'll have 2 presenters tonight. We have someone from Moffett Nickel and someone from ICF.
Maybe he hasn't melted back there in Baltimore.
Yeah, poor guy.
Hey, can you hear me?
There he is.
Hi. So we've got Jordan Meyer in the audience there. He is with ICF, and he'll be present to help with questions about CEQA. I can see Adams there as well, and the chair of our community advisory committee. So this is cool to be online watching everybody. So we've got Josh Singer giving an update about phasing plan and wharf design. And then Jason Volk with ICF talking about sound and noise modeling, generally how it works. We don't have results yet, but wanted to get the knowledge to everyone of how the noise impact analysis will be conducted. There's a lot going on with our various committees, some good progress with the aquaculture committee. We're about to have an important meeting with fishing, and the community advisory committee has been working really hard on the upcoming public meeting. And then the Green Terminal Committee is going to start meeting again soon. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Josh.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, you can hear me? Okay.
Get the volume up a little bit higher though.
How's that?
Works.
Good, yep.
Oh, we turn our microphones off.
Okay. Okay, it says sharing is not turned on. Sending a request for sharing. Let me see if it share. Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay, you guys seeing this? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the phasing for the project. So the project has gone through a bunch of different iterations of exactly what the phasing will look like. There's been some industry changes. There's been some different changes of, who's been involved in the project. And we have settled in on a two-phase project. So the driver for the phasing primarily is the amount of area needed to properly service the industry. So there are two things that happen. Actually, let me take this back one. Yep, okay. This is an overview of the terminal, just a 3D rendering on the site. There's two things that are going to happen at the terminal. There will be, the best way to look at it is white stuff and yellow stuff. There will be white stuff, which is called the anyway, the components for the wind turbines, right? So the nacelles, blades, and tower sections will be delivered to the terminal. And those are the things that you see sticking up above the water. And then there will also be the foundations. That's the yellow stuff, right? And those will be floating foundations that are fabricated at the terminal, right? In order to properly service the industry, the terminal needs to deal with both of those things. So if you just have a wind turbine generation terminal or a marshaling port that gets the white stuff in, you are the terminal won't function correctly because you also need to integrate that stuff onto the foundations. So that is the driver for the phasing, which has pushed phase one a bit larger than it had been in the past. Right? Okay, so this is the current phasing plan. There's actually three phases. There's a phase 0, a phase 1, and a phase 2. The phase 0, the colors aren't that great on this, but if you could see my mouse moving on here, I hope. There is a phase 0, which basically is going to get the access roads ready for the terminal. So there are two access roads. There's a south entrance up here, and then there's a north entrance over here. This is should be a different color, but this is inside phase 0. Okay, and inside at the south entrance is where the utilities enter the terminal. So phase 0 will be getting the roads ready to access the terminal in both the north and the south entrance. And then there will also be a significant utility corridor underneath the south entrance road. So that'll be phase 0. Phase 1 is the large part of the project. And like I said, phase 1 will basically open the terminal to service the industry, both the wind turbine generation components and the assembly of the foundations on the site. and that's the green that you see here. So it's about 124 acres and about 2,300 linear feet of wharf, right? So the full northern wharf will be built out in phase one, and that'll be dealing with the delivery, the input of the components, and the integration of the components onto the foundations. And then one slot in the second, in the southern wharf will be built, and that wharf there will be the launching point for the floating foundations, right? The dredge is also included in phase one, and that's shown in kind of like this burnt orange color here. There are 3 areas of dredge. There are the berth area, the integrated wet storage area, and then the sinking basin and the foundation wet storage area, right? So, the dredge happens inside the berth area and the maneuvering area here to get the vessels on and off the berth, to get the foundations to be able to move around at the berth. The wet storage areas are for foundations, either foundations that are built but not ready to be integrated, or fully integrated units, so the foundations with the turbine components on top that have been fully constructed, but there isn't a weather window to allow them to be towed out at the site right after they've been constructed. So they're held in this wet storage area until the weather window opens. Then they're hooked up to tugs and towed out to the site. There is a phase two, that's about 15 acres. And then the rest of the southern wharf comes online at that point. And the phasing is also driven a bit, like the actual lines of the phasing, like where the phasing happens, is a bit driven by property ownership as well. But that's not the primary driver of, why the site is divided, kind of like a large phase one and a smaller phase two. Like I said, that's driven by industry needs. The wharf itself, any questions on that, on the phasing?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah. Well, when we get to the public. We will have the
Oops, say again?
there will be an opportunity for public questions and comments after the presentation.
Oh, okay, okay. The other thing I wanted to show was the typical wharf construction, which we had some issues getting it in, but anyway, this is it. Right, so when you're looking at the wharf, we were looking at the wharf and plan, which is from the top. This is an elevation of the wharf. So we're looking at it kind of from the side along the wharf now. And this is the uplands here. So this is where the pile supported area or the wharf would meet the uplands of the terminal. And basically what we have is steel pipe piles. They haven't been finally sized yet, but they're in the range of about 36 inches in diameter. They'll get driven into the mud line, just outshore of the existing shoreline. Then a slope, the slope will get hardened to prevent erosion of the slope when the vessels come in, and that'll get a riprap on top of it. It'll be an armored slope. And then on top of the steel pipe piles, we get a concrete superstructure, right? So that's basically cast in place or precast concrete members that get put on top of the steel pipe piles. And then everything is topped off by what we call DGA, dense graded aggregate, which is like a crushed stone with all the voids are filled with fines, heavily compacted. And that's the typical bearing surface of the terminal. So what you're seeing here, this wharf, that is here. That's what runs across here, right? We were just looking in the sideways here. So like I said, 2,300, oh, actually 70, well, yeah, about 2,300 feet of it in phase one. And then an additional 1,150 feet of the wharf in phase two. Exactly when phase two happens will be market driven. So the terminal, like I said, will be able to service the industry with the green and the dredging that we've got planned. And then phase two can come later, you know, as market demands, right? And what happens in phase two and when that happens, you know, remains to be seen. How, you know, like how quick the industry wants to develop and how much land is needed to do that. Yep, so that's pretty much what I had for the phasing and the wharf.
Yeah, go ahead.
It appears as though the northernmost area there where the I guess the sinking basin and whatnot there just south of the Samoa Bridge seems to take the entire channel. What kind of accommodations are being thought about for other users of the bay?
Yeah, so we're doing some investigations here. The sinking basin is basically this area here. And that is used periodically. We are showing foundations there, but that's a bit of a misrepresentation. So that will happen when the foundations get launched. They'll get pulled over here and put into the sinking basin. So that is kind of an intermittent use. We are looking to see what the width between the foundations here will be used, and if, you know, smaller vessels can pass. You get real limited. You know, obviously you guys know better than me going past the bridge here. So we're looking not to restrict it any further, right, than what type of vessels can operate in there.
I just want to ask, Rob, how many presentations do we have tonight? And should we be doing question and answers after each presentation or wait for all of them? Or-
Two presentations.
There's two presentations and what's,
Phasing, and the other one is on Saturday.
okay, so those are pretty two different. So yeah, I would say let's take questions on the phasing. Any other questions from the board? I'll bring it out to the public then if there's any questions about the phasing aspect of this presentation. I guess we'll start with in the room or, okay. I guess do I have to turn my microphone off for Rob to talk? Okay.
Hi, it sounds like Chris answered the question. There's two speakers tonight. The other one's about noise. Your call on the sequence that you want to take questions. And I recommend doing them separately because the noise, I think, is going to lead to a lot of questions. And we are planning for a passing channel through that north wet storage to ensure that traffic can get to the north part of the bay.
And, will this, are you on now or?
Gotcha.
Will this be some of the like type of technical information that will be available at the public meeting as well for questions and conversation?
It will be.
It will be. Okay. Yeah, and since you're in the room.
Maybe his mic's down low
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Okay. All right, so with that, yeah, are there any questions, comments from the public on this portion of the presentation on the phasing portion? Okay, and then on Zoom, go ahead, is that Jen? And he's getting you unmuted.
Hi, thank you, Stephen. It's hard to hear you right now for some reason. I was wondering, thank you, Josh. That was interesting. I was wondering if you could repeat what you said about how phase one is being planned to be bigger now than previously and why that would be. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just as the California plan has evolved and you know, like as the partnerships in the port has evolved, the need to service the industry has grown a bit, and this will do the best job to get the port functioning correctly to service the northern leases and even beyond. As the industry comes back, once the once we have, if and when the industry comes back, that this size of the port is what's needed to service it properly. Originally, it was WTG only, under a different type of plan. Now it is WTG, so the components and the foundation area combined is the big difference. Both of those things were considered. Let me just say one more thing. Both of those things were considered in prior plans. It's not the big difference is now, both they will have both of those activities will be opened in phase one. So there's nothing new here that wasn't previously proposed. It's just the timing of when it comes online.
You got your answer? Okay. We was going to clarify, but if you've got the answer.
You want to hear from Rob first?
We're there with it. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Amy Jester with the Core Hub. I was curious about what triggers the like phase one beginning, or excuse me, phase zero, and then the transition into phase one. I know that you had said that phase two is market driven. But if you're able to just share a little bit more about the how phase zero and then phase one begin, that'd be great. And then kind of a general time frame for what it takes to get through phase zero and then through phase one would be helpful. Thanks.
Yep. So as far as timing goes, it's really one construction project. So phase zero will be there to get the site ready to, it'll be doing some things to help with the large construction phase one of the site. So I don't know if this has been fully planned out yet. I don't know, Rob, if you want to take that one. I see you got your hand up there. Like, basically, I think phase zero happens and rolls directly into phase one, right? So phase zero and phase one are construction schedule driven. Phase zero happens first to allow access to the site and to get the utilities set up so we can pull them into the site. As far as, how long the construction, right now we're looking at, phase zero, phase one, depending on the different methodologies, we're still working through this, but it's, somewhere in the order of like 3 to 4 years to do the phase, to be complete with phase one.
I can help with this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So the term phase zero is a remnant of the infra grant, where we committed, when we got the $426 million, we committed to doing the on-site mitigation and roads prior to having any impact on the site. So the roads, utilities, and on-site mitigation. So that's kind of the remnant of that. Because of the way the infra grant was structured, we had to have the beginning of the terminal construction as phase one. So we invented phase zero as a loophole to commit to doing the on-site mitigation first. Then one idea we're entertaining is we're really shooting for, our goal is to do mitigation well before we have any impacts in the project, on-site and off-site mitigation. And so we could do that as soon as the permits CEQA are approved, as soon as the off-site mitigation and on-site mitigation are designed. And that construction could begin theoretically years before the actual terminal project has impacts. So that is definitely part of the plan. The trigger of when phase one would begin comes down to largely the demand of the industry. If the industry says like, hey, we're ready to go, transmission's good, the state's ready to invest, then phase one would happen earlier. So there's that. And then also Jen's question about why phase one got bigger. We realized that the way phase one had originally been presented, we needed another project somewhere else to make floating foundations. And it probably wasn't going to be in Humboldt Bay. So then, the closest option would have been San Francisco. They would have had to have their own billion-dollar project to build floating foundations, launch them, tow them up here. And it was just cost prohibitive. And looking at the way the industry has evolved, there was no way that really could have worked. So we needed to incorporate floating foundations into phase one, rather than phase two. So we used to have phases 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now we have 0, 1, and 2.
Yeah, hi, Sylvia here with Humboldt Waterkeeper. I was just curious, which partners you were referring to in regards to phase one having to become larger, not like a larger footprint, but as Jason was explaining, larger.
Yeah, I think there was a point where the terminal was where the district was partnered with an operator. That is when, like Rob describes, we were in a phase 1, 2, 3 scenario. And at that point, that made sense, for the development of the site. As time has passed, like Rob said, there is, kind of different demands on the industry. The San Francisco site did not kind of pick up, and the way it has evolved is it makes sense to bring on that foundation capabilities with the opening of phase one. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and stress that there's nothing new here that wasn't going to open on the terminal. There's no additional land. There's no additional construction activities or environmental impacts. All of it was planned to happen in the same locations with kind of the same outlines and build out. It's just that part of that plan has moved into a phase one.
With the reduction in phases where you kind of consolidated 3 but then added 0, does that change the adaptive management strategy that would take place in order to make sure that the phases are in concordance with any environmental concerns?
Yeah, yep, that's all coordinated. Yeah, and just one other thing there, like phase 0, like Rob said, was always part of it as well. But yes, that is the effort right now, is that making sure whatever is in phase 1 is all of the environmental mitigation, whatever needs to happen for permitting and any type of monitoring or mitigation would be in coordination with the proposed phase 1 build. So the project, all aspects of the project are based on what you're seeing here. The kind of like the planning, the construction, permitting, mitigation, it's all tied together and based on this phasing.
I remain completely puzzled why the commissioners here would even be entertaining a project like this. This is a catastrophic failure for Humboldt Bay. This does not align with the county's goals of ecological restoration. I think the new name for the harbor district should be the Humboldt Bay Harbor Industrialization District. Recreation, conservation, I've never heard those words mentioned in this room except for today. I feel like I'm sacrificial. The clam business that I'm trying to start and invest probably $100,000 this year in is completely sacrificial to this project. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife disease pathologist specialist, Colleen Burge, has said this is a catastrophic problem. That's what she said. I'm still waiting for her paper. I think her boss, Randy Level, who's the aquaculture coordinator for all of the state, who has said zero in the last bunch of meetings. I think there's a slime factor going on here. I think somebody's getting paid. Someone's making a lot of money to see this project get through. I don't know. I'm just remain puzzled that you would even consider such nonsense for Humboldt Bay. I think this ground is prime for restoration. I think all the piles could get pulled. I think there could be, with a great conservation and recreation director on hand here, I think you could be applying for millions of dollars in grants. You should see how many people and money's being spent out on the Wadouche or the Lamfair Dunes where I live. Every day there's 10 young people that come in. Mattole Restoration Council, RCAA is there. This is Andrea Prickert's project. Every day they must be spending millions. Helicopters bringing in plants to plant on sand. They're planting sand dunes. That's what they're doing. Guys, this is a perfect project for this. You could be putting tons of money into that. I think this is better suited for Los Angeles Harbor. I think those people down there would have no problem with this. I wake up in the middle of the night in panic attacks that I'm trying to build a business for my family and my son, my children, to be oystermen, to be oyster women on Humboldt Bay. But I don't know. I fear. I met with an attorney, Billy Plauché. His big concern was how we're going to keep Washington State from overreacting. The damage is being done as we speak. I'm not so sure my business is worth anything. I don't know if I could sell it today if I wanted to, because all my clients are in Washington State. And to be able to drive my clams to Washington State and put those in the water in Washington require lots of paperwork and lots of agreements and lots of health history. Humboldt Bay has that. Nowhere else has that. Humboldt Bay has that. Humboldt Bay is the shellfish nursery for the West Coast. That right there will very likely kill that. And so that's not the bay I want. That's not the bay I want. Thanks for listening.
Are there any other comments on this presentation before we move on to the next presentation?
Right? Or no comments? My name is Jordan Mayer. I'm an ecologist and planner. I live here in Eureka, and I'm part of the Harbor District's consultant team. We have many members, several local, and one of our speakers is the noise specialist, Jason Volk, that's going to talk next. And I just wanted to sort of introduce noise as a topic. In general, I know this is a big concern, especially like Samoa and other nearby residences. But noise is one of 21 different environmental resources for which impacts are required to be evaluated under CEQA. And noise impacts are primarily considered as they are related to health impacts. And CEQA requires agencies to evaluate whether a project would expose people to new or intensified noises, and whether those levels exceed agreed upon standard levels. This is often called a threshold in CEQA. And it includes both quantitative thresholds and defined increases over existing noise or ambient noise, and whether sensitive receptors like residences, schools, hospitals, and wildlife would experience impacts, and whether those impacts would be significant based on the thresholds. And by treating noise as a resource topic, CEQA ensures that decision makers and the public understand how a project changes the existing acoustic environment, and whether feasible measures, if any, can reduce or avoid those effects. That's all I had to say to introduce the topic.
Hello, this is Jason Volk. Shall I begin?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just setting up my screen share. I have a presentation, so I'm going to set that up. Okay, can you see that okay? Okay. Yeah, yeah, Jordan, thanks for introducing the topic. My name is Jason Volk. I'm a noise specialist at ICF working on the environmental impact report for the Redwood Marine Terminal project. And my presentation is about the topics related to noise and vibration in a technical sense and how they relate to this project. This first slide is just to get the lay of the land. What you've already seen that in a previous presentation, but it's overlaid on the aerial image, which shows the community of Samoa. It shows the areas of dredging and slope protection and the wet storage areas and the development areas on land for turbine assembly. So as we talk about noise and vibration, we're obviously talking about this project and the effects on this community as well as the greater surrounding areas. So here's some topics we'll cover. These are questions that are directly from or paraphrased from questions that were asked of the district about effects of noise and vibration, and more specifically, how this project would generate noise and vibration in the community. This is a short presentation, but we're going to go briefly into these one by one, and all these topics are covered in the EIR as well. Such as the difference between noise and sound, how noise would affect quality of life, the ambient noise levels that were measured, the types of equipment that we are modeling, the standards that are used, and how the study will address the sounds that we can't hear with our own ears, how vibration could cause property damage, and how would the environmental impact report study noise impacts on wildlife and types of noise mitigation that would be considered in the EIR. So let's first begin with just how decibels work. Sound levels are reported in terms of decibels that are noted as dBA, which is A-weighted decibels, which correspond to how human beings perceive sound. Decibels are measured in terms of a logarithmic scale, and it describes the amount of sound energy that's received at a microphone or at an eardrum, and it's not added arithmetically, so it's decibels are a different type of metric. So when you are looking at changes in decibel values, if you were to take like a highway with 1,000 cars on it, and then you were to double that and have 2,000 cars, that would be a doubling of sound energy, but that would only result in a 3 decibel increase. So if you had 60 decibels before, a doubling of the sound energy would be 63 decibels. And that would actually be barely noticeable to the human ear, which is not intuitive, but in practice, that is how noise works. The doubling of sound energy is just barely noticeable. A 5 decibel change, if just a little bit higher, does begin to become noticeable to the ear. And then a 10 decibel change sounds either twice as loud or half as loud. One of the questions was, what is the difference between noise and sound? Now, sound is a mechanical energy that's transmitted by pressure waves in air or water. And sound is everything that we can hear. Noise can be defined as unwanted sound. In an everyday environment, sound fluctuates over time and place. For instance, in our daily lives, an individual can begin a day in a relatively quiet home, then move through a transportation cycle to go about daily business, and then experience noise from population centers or work situations, and then return home to relatively quiet home environment. So whether the introduction of a new source of noise interferes with daily activities depends not only on the noise level of the new source, but the ambient noise level of the environment that a new source of noise is introduced to, as well as the presence of people and animals to hear it. So noise is a category of sound. Noise is a category of sound that is considered undesirable, things like construction equipment, traffic, and airplanes. Things that are not noise are desired sounds like ocean waves, wind in the trees, birds, and music. So you have two types of sound, kinds we like and kinds we don't like. So it's a bit subjective. And you may have heard the term signal to noise. So the signal is something we want to pick up in the sound field, and noise is something we want to tune out. But when it comes to measuring it, sound received by our microphone does not discriminate between noise and non-noise. It's all sound. It's all incident on the microphone or on the ear. And so the microphone picks up this complicated pattern of both signal and noise and measures the overall sound level. But what we're concerned with in the EIR is how much noise is the project contributing to the ambient sound environment, even though the ambient sound environment consists of both sound and noise and non-noise that create our ambient sound environment. Some of the questions that were asked of the district were, how will noise affect my quality of life? Such as I've heard noise from construction can cause heart problems, neurological problems, sleep problems. Are these physical and mental health concerns being studied? What are the health risks of long-term exposure for children or the elderly? Is the noise so loud it's going to damage our children's hearing? Will I even be able to have a conversation? Am I going to have to scream at my spouse over the dinner table just to be heard? Now, there is a large body of evidence that chronic environmental noise presents a health risk. And health effects include sleep disturbance, cardiovascular effects, stress, annoyance, and hearing loss that contribute to cardiovascular effects. And according to the Environmental Protection Agency, people exposed to an average sound level of 70 decibels averaged over a 24-hour day, that's day and night, are at risk of hearing loss, but that's equivalent to 75 decibels for 8 hours. So that's like accounting for the logarithmic aspect of decibels that I was talking about earlier. So this is something that was in the original levels document from the Environmental Protection Agency. And California land use compatibility standards have kind of picked up the same principles in designing levels to protect human health and welfare. And Humboldt Bay has also adopted a version of those land use compatibility standards in its general plan. And Title 24 building standards require that residential interior levels should not exceed 45 LDN, which is a day-night noise metric that accounts for night levels differently from daytime levels in penalizing night noise. So that would raises the value so that sleep disturbance is taken more into account than the daytime noise environment. Speech interference begins to interfere with conversation at a level of 60 decibels, which is a case where if you're sitting across from somebody and having a conversation and you're like just a couple of yards apart from each other, speaking at a normal voice volume, then a background sound of 60 decibels would start to make you want to raise your voice. Another question that was raised is, how do you know what the ambient levels are currently? So our team collected noise measurements continuously for 2 to 3 days to capture the day-night trend in levels. And this was done at 18 locations between January and April last year. And 8 of the monitors were installed in Samoa, in the neighborhoods facing the project. This is just a sample of the results that were collected from those surveys. the levels were during the day were they were in a fairly narrow range, and it was actually fairly consistent across the sites that we measured. The daytime was kind of in the range of the mid 50s, and the nighttime was in the low 50s. It was just a bit quieter. So that's sort of consistent with suburban ambient conditions. It's if in the EPA document it talks about what different types of environments look like. So it's sort of consistent with that. And while the noise measurements were being collected, we observed sources that were going on at the time, like traffic on local roads, US 101. There were birds, motorboats, HVAC equipment, trucks, safety beeps, and voices of just people talking in the neighborhood. So the types of equipment, what types of equipment are included in the noise model? So our noise analysis will study construction and operation of the heavy lift marine terminal project based on the design specifications. The construction will include the different phases of construction. There will be demolition equipment in the beginning, followed by site grading of the whole site with graders, dump trucks. Wharf construction would include pile drivers, which are the loudest type of construction noise that would be used on the project. And then there would be dredging and slope protection involving dredges, tugboats, and barges. And once construction is complete for each phase, operation would begin with tugboats, cranes, and self-propelled modular transporters and the foundation assembly site. So our geographic noise model will evaluate the day-night noise levels as well as the worst-case hourly noise levels for both construction and operation. How does distance influence noise level? With increasing distance from a noise source, sound levels increase in intensity. So the further away you are, the less intense the noise. And this is just a very simple model. If you were to take a source that was producing a sound level of n dBA, n being a value, say like a bulldozer producing 85 decibels at 50 feet away, then at 100 feet, it would be 85 minus 6, which would equal 79 decibels. Then at 200, it would be n minus 12, 400 would be n minus 18, and so on. But distance is not the only factor that influences noise. There's also the influence of ground type topography and existing structures. So soft ground, intervening ground, and structures reduce noise levels as well as shielding elements. So this next slide is just a graphic kind of illustrating how this relates to the site and to put it more into scale. If we look at the boundary, the northern, well, wait, I'm oriented this way. So it's actually the western boundary of the site towards Samoa. And we look towards the bay, then it's about 1,000 feet from the shoreline where the wharf would be constructed. So the pile driving that would take place at the wharfs would be about 1,000 feet away. So it would be the noise level of the pile driver minus 26 dBA would be a rough estimate to begin with. And then you would take into account the structures, intervening ground type, and so on. So this is just a way to kind of illustrate it and put that into context. What standards are used for the project? So the project model we use is called Sound Plan, which is three-dimensional geographic model that includes all these influences that we talked about, and it implements an international standard ISO 9613. And we're developing multiple scenarios for the construction and operation. So we're analyzing this in pretty fine detail for each phase and to understand what types of equipment are most influential for each one of those phases. So the lead agency is the district, and implementing thresholds set by Humboldt County. And among those thresholds are 65 decibels during daytime hours, are defined as 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 60 decibels during nighttime hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And the EIR will also evaluate the increase due to the project relative to existing conditions as measured with sound level meters, and that'll be on a site-by-site basis. Those measured sound levels that we were looking at earlier, that was just the range, but we would look at the site by site, how it would be different across the project, not only in Samoa, but the greater surrounding area as well. So on another separate topic, how will the study address the sounds we can't hear? There was a question that came up about low frequency noise causing headaches, nausea, and vibroacoustic disease. So low frequency noise or infrasound is attributed to the operation of wind turbines, and wind turbines wouldn't be operating at the site. They'd be loaded onto barges and transported several miles offshore, so they would not be audible onshore as operating wind turbines. Heavy construction equipment produces pretty low levels of infrasound, and based on our experience, it's not a concern for this project. Another question is, will vibration from the project damage my home? Will I feel it in the ground? Will my windows rattle? Those kind of concerns. And it is true that at high enough levels, vibration can be noticeable inside of structures or cause building damage. That vibration is a concern exclusively inside of buildings, but vibration is not a common environmental problem, actually. And for the environmental studies that we do, vibration impacts are relatively rare, but they do occur when in close proximity to a vibration source. Vibration levels are influenced by stiffness of soil and depth to bedrock, and it's primarily dependent on distance from the source, just like with noise. So as we were looking at a graphic earlier, pile driving for the new wharf structures would be done about 1,000 feet away from the nearest residence. And based on our experience, project-related vibration from pile drivers or other types of heavy equipment is not expected to be perceptible in buildings outside the project site. So briefly, will the EIR study noise impacts on wildlife? As Jordan was mentioning, this would be studied in the EIR and would include hydroacoustic analysis for pile driving effects on fish. And my last slide is what types of noise mitigation are being considered. The noise reduction measures there are noise reduction measures, it's important to note, that are included in the project design, such as the use of electrically powered equipment instead of diesel fuel where available. And the EIR will identify noise mitigation measures to minimize or avoid noise impacts, which could include, but are not limited to, installation of noise monitors to see the real-time noise levels along the project boundary, the use of vibratory pile driving methods, because vibratory pile driving is significantly less quieter than impact driving, so that method would be employed where possible. Installation of noise barriers would also be evaluated, as well as limiting hours for certain types of equipment used in the construction and operation of the project. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions or comments from the board?
Hey, Jason, you said one of the thresholds is 65 decibels. And it looked like the background levels were in that range too. Is that measured at the source, or is that measured at a distance?
That would be measured at the receptor, wherever the noise sensitive receptors are. So we'd be focused on the residences. So it would be, we would first look at the monitors to see, to compare it to the levels that we measured, but we wouldn't be limited to just the monitors. It would be, we would cover the entire area and all the homes within the Samoa community, as well as across the water to Eureka. So since it's a three-dimensional model, it's sort of like a grid model where you can see like the contours of noise as they extend out from the source. So that's how we would evaluate it.
Can you tell me about how many decibels? I don't know what size pile that they're driving at this time, but can you tell me about the decibel level for pile driving of the piles that we are talking about?
Unfortunately, I don't have enough information to answer that question at this time. I will need that. That will be part of the EIR, but I just don't have enough information to answer it. But it is among the louder types of construction equipment. I mean, particularly impact driving is quite loud. So, but it really it's very dependent on the size of the pile driver and the method used.
They're going to be long piles. The diagrams I see, they're going to be big and they're going to be long. I know when they drove the piles for the bridge abutment on the Samoa bridges, it was readdressed the seismic needs there. That there was, it took them a while. It was all summer, a year and a half, something like that, and you could hear that all day long in the city of Eureka, everywhere. And it was bone jarring. And I don't know. I'm assuming this is going to be very similar, but I don't know that. That's why I asked.
Yeah, as I said, I don't have information that I can share at this time about that. We just don't have that information yet.
Yeah, I have a question concerning the difference between conventional pile driving and you mentioned the vibrating system for installing pilings is, I would guess that the vibrating system's a lot less intrusive.
Yes, it has to do with the amount of energy that you're with the hammer blows. So, vibratory driving can often be possible if the soil will allow pile to be driven using that method. But what is it? Oh, the term is refusal. There's a certain point where there's a refusal point where vibratory driving is not just won't be able to continue to make progress in achieving the required tip depth. So that's when impact driving needs to be employed. But yes, to answer your question, vibratory driving, because of the amount of energy, it is quieter. It tends to be 10 dB, 10 decibels quieter or more using that method compared to impact hammer driving.
Will that be part of the EIR to study the feasibility of using vibratory rather than?
Well, it will certainly be included in the mitigation, and it will be included in the study in terms of potential use of either method.
I had another question about vibration just from equipment, and you had mentioned the type of soil and other environmental factors have a lot to do with like how much vibration there is. It's my understanding that the area as proposed will be compacted significantly. So will the EIR be studying the impacts with the post-compacted conditions as opposed to the current conditions? analyzing how much vibration and their effects there would be.
Are you referring to the grading of the site or the ground improvement that's being done?
Yeah, the grading and the ground improvement,
Mhm.
but I understand from other presentations, they in order to accommodate the heavy equipment and material that the ground need to be
Yeah.
significantly. So the condition of the ground at the site will be different than it is now. So that vibration transference will be different than it is.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we would be, the thing about vibration is it's that the ground type does have a strong influence on it. So because of that, our analysis is conservative as regards the ground type. We never assume soft ground because it's not really possible to know exactly without geotechnical investigation and very extensive vibration propagation modeling. So we always first assume that the ground is going to be of a hard type so that our propagation model is sufficiently conservative in regards to potential effects on structures as well as how it could be perceived inside of structures by inhabitants of structures. So we look at both of those factors.
There's a question for a while, but I guess will we see the results of the noise study prior to the release of the DEIR, or will that just be?
They'll be released concurrently.
Any other questions or comments from the board? I'll kick it out to the public. Start it in the room.
Good evening, Matt Simmons with the Environmental Protection Information Center. I have a couple questions, so I'll just rattle them off and then sit back down. Is the Humboldt Bay Harbor District asking Humboldt County to change the noise level standards as part of the Port Overlay Zone as part of the Humboldt Bay Area Plan update? Where were the 8 baseline monitors located? Could we see a map? You sort of got at this, but I was wondering about the uniquely sandy geology of the peninsula and whether that would affect the way vibrations feel. And then will the hydroacoustic analysis consider different species that will be impacted by the noise in the water? Because different species hear differently. And what species are you considering? Thank you.
Who should answer all of those questions? I could kind of run the gamut of a few different topics, but starting with, or just either Rob or Josh, any of those questions? Maybe even Vanessa, I don't know. Are we currently asking for any changes in?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think that came up. Not that I've heard.
I could speak to that briefly.
Sure.
The details of the port overlay zone haven't been developed yet. It's in part going to be looking at an analysis of other ports as well as some of the design requirements for the site. But in the existing performance standards, without any changes, you can have deviations from those numbers with a conditional use permit. So it's a kind of a decision that can be made by the county planners as well without an overlay. Yep.
After I did some of those questions, if somebody else has to address some of the other questions.
One has been answered, we'd be asking for modification and with the app request to receive the map. Yeah. We can deliver the map with some other place. A discussion on species, effects on species. I believe Matt, I gave this one questions.
It was the same one Stephen asked about.
HT Harvey is doing the marine vibroacoustic modeling, and I believe that they're including, standard fish species protected sensitive species, fish species, as well as marine mammals, from my understanding.
Todd Van Herp, Humboldt Bay Oyster Company, just sticking on the noise limitations in a 2023 document from the district regarding changes to the or request to the county for changes to the Humboldt Bay area plan. It specifically, well, now I've lost it. Requests modifications for noise, dust, lighting, various things like that. I don't know if that's been changed, but it's in that document asking for modification of limitations on noise specifically. One of the last aquaculture advisory committee meetings we had, we brought that up when these things were going to go to the county for modification requests. And it was told to us at that moment that this was a couple of months ago, that the county was not in a position, I think economically, financially, to address those questions as yet. Maybe the CEC grant has funding for addressing that question. I don't know if that's part of it, but this document specifically addresses that as a request from the Harbor District to modify limitations on noise. When we drove a bunch of pals for the Target building, we could hear that in Arcata. Standing around heavy equipment as an archaeologist, it feels like little earthquakes all the time. Just an excavator putting his bucket down on the ground a little bit hard will ripple, and you'll feel it. But really what I wanted to say is I hope that the commission, you guys, the commissioners here really consider the effects of vibration on shellfish. You've got about 1 trillion baby clams and oysters within feet of this project. You ever go clamming? You ever go clamming for razors? How you find them? Go like that. That's how you find them. So, this on very small shellfish like this, when they're actively feeding, this is something that needs to really be looked at. Talking about species, well, go talk to Taylor Shellfish about that. They're like the Burger King of the shellfish industry in the world, and their main nursery is within feet of this place. Like I encourage you to go check out Taylortown. You will be amazed. If I got a minute, let's say I did actually keep a few things to say. Let me see, did I get them all? Yeah, it's unique. Humboldt Bay, it's not a common problem. Well, yeah, Humboldt Bay is totally unique. The amount of food we're producing in the waters of Humboldt Bay is not like anything else in California. So we are very unique, and I think that's important. Wind. I did a lot of Grateful Dead concerts in my time. And one thing that was really interesting was being way out in the back. And when the wind blew, you heard the sound differently. The wind would come blowing right at you, and all of a sudden you'd hear it. Then it'd blow away, and you didn't hear it. And so it's really kind of trippy, to hear the wind blow the music around. So wind is, I think, another factor about noise.
Hello again, Amy Jester with the Core Hub. I appreciate, well, first of all, thanks so much for both of these presentations here tonight and for the ongoing technical presentation schedule. They're super informative and so thank you for the time and resources it takes to offer these. I have a couple different questions. One is a kind of different version than Matt's around where the monitors were, the 8 monitors that were placed in Samoa. I was curious if there was one or more that were placed at the Rex townhomes, if that might be something that folks are able to answer here tonight. That would be great. And then also was interested in better understanding the period of time that pile driving might be taking place as part of the projects, just so we can get a sense of Is that going to be a few months, some period longer? If you're able to share any anticipations of that, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope we will look to get them out together on the beach. Now, in terms of sorry. Oh, does anyone have an answer to that at this point, or will that come out later? How long anticipate pile guard? I think maybe we could add new thought. Also have Jet Paul. Yeah, I think we have a couple of hands online too.
Can you hear me? I'm getting the impression you're asking me a question, but I imagine everyone else is experiencing the same thing. Can't hear anything from anyone in the room unless they're at the dais there.
Is this better? I can't
Yeah.
tell when my mic is on and when it's not on.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I know that, yeah, never mind. So I think the question was, do we have at this point any sense of the duration that the pile driving might occur?
Yes. I can't answer the question definitively, but what I can tell you is that there are standard in-water work windows, and that in Humboldt Bay, and that's to protect various special status species and marine mammals. And anyway, that is from July 1st to October 15th. So typically, construction that is in the water cannot happen outside of that window. So the pile driving, if we stick with that in-water work window, would be 3 months and then 9 months off, 3 months, 9 months off, 3 months. So 3 years of pile driving, 3 months at a time. It is possible to extend the in-water work windows to 4 or 5 months and then possibly have fewer years. But all of that is to be clarified in the upcoming notice of preparation project description in August. So we don't have a definitive answer yet, but that's generally the parameters that we're working with.
Thank you. Do we have more, yeah, in-person comments, and then we'll move online after this.
I had one quick question for Rob before he gets off. Rob? Oh, sorry. I'm Jane Madsen and I live in Samoa. Rob, did I recall you saying at an earlier meeting there were going to be 4,000 piles, or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, not going to be 4,000 piles. I believe that there are 5,000 creosote-soaked piles in Humboldt Bay that are currently abandoned or not utilized to support a dock. So that may be the number that you're recalling. The heavy lift marine terminal includes at least half of those in the bay. So there are thousands of piles at the site that will be removed. The new piles will be larger and not as many, but I don't have a count at the moment.
You don't have a count. Okay, thank you, Rob. Mr. Volk, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm curious. When you listed the ambient noise that you were studying in Samoa, I didn't hear that the ocean, the surf was listed. Did you take that into account?
Was that one of the sources? I remember looking at the data and it was on there in terms of what it being audible at the time of the measurements.
And what type of monitors did you use? There have to be different types, right?
Well, it's a sound level meter with a microphone and it measures sound continuously.
Is there like a model, a particular model that you used?
No, it's a microphone.
Okay, so you just hung out microphones. There wasn't any measuring, right?
Well, it's a microphone attached to a sound level meter, a measuring device. So it measures the sound pressure levels in real
Just
time.
asking you what meter you used.
Oh, the The model?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a soft dB Piccolo Type 2 sound level meter.
Okay. Who manufactures those?
Soft dB is the name of the company.
Thank you. Okay, you mentioned the operation. You didn't mention anything about studying the noise from the ships that will be coming in and out delivering the product. And I believe that's going to be hundreds of ships a year. Did you take that into account?
Yes, that's included in our modeling.
Okay. And
yeah.
you took into account what they're going to sound like?
Yes, that's part of our noise model. Yes.
Okay. And did your noise model go into the water to consider what the fish and the oysters and the clams are going to be hearing and feeling? Because I believe sound travels differently in water.
It does. The hydroacoustics, as Jordan was mentioning, that's being studied separately by H.T. Harvey. So it will study effects on fish species.
We'll have a separate presentation about that topic, about noise impacts to wildlife, including underwater.
Great, thanks. And you mentioned that you were taking into account that the wind turbines would not operate here in the bay, correct?
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be installed in the bay. That's correct. Yeah.
Right, but they're going to be tested in the bay, right?
Well, I kind of feel like that's kind of outside of my area in terms of like how they would be, like
Well,
the operations part.
that takes into account noise that will be generated that we're all going to hear, right? If they're going to test those wind turbines here before they haul them out there.
I can answer that, Jason. So, unfortunately, Josh left the meeting, but he is our operations specialist, and so we can have him back to talk about this. I get this question a lot, and it's not that our terminal will be a testing ground for wind turbines, but they have to function before they can be taken out into the ocean. And so it is possible that they will spin them a couple of times. Sorry, this thing operates, it's functional, it's ready to go. And then the blades are heavy and they can't just sit idle for days at a time. It'll crush the bearings of it's like a ball bearing that keeps the blade spinning. And so they have to be powered to turn one full rotation per hour, which is imperceptible. I think your question is going to lead to infrasound. And so we can have Josh back to talk about, like Jason is saying, they're not going to be installed and operating in the bay or at the terminal. But like you're saying, right, we do need to make sure they're operational, they're functional before leaving. So we'll have Josh come back and talk about how that works.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And then we'll move to online. I appreciate everybody's patience with this topic. This isn't how we normally conduct board meetings. I'll just say that generally when there's presentations, there's opportunity for comments, but we try and avoid a lot of back and forth. But I think because this is of such interest and such technical knowledge, I'm allowing it to go on so that we can get some of these questions answered. And I'm interested in the answers myself. I don't know a lot of these things. So that's why we're letting it kind of go past what we normally would do in a board meeting. So moving on, I don't see who's got their hands up. Mindy, go ahead, Jen, if you can unmute her.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, I think. Hi, everyone. Jen Calt with Humboldt Waterkeeper. I want to just share that I met the senior field representative for the pile drivers, local number 34, at one of these meetings. And he told me that to drive 200 piles for a pier takes about 6 months. So with the work window, that would be 2 years. And the project description says there would be over 4,200 piles. So 2,900 in the water, over 1,300 on land. So you can probably do the math. My question is, and I want to say thank you so much to the commissioners for asking really good questions and all the members of the public, because this is so informative and super helpful. My question is for Jason regarding noise. So you mentioned that the county's threshold for nighttime noise is 60 decibels, and I just looked that up online while you all were talking. And one of the comparisons was that would be an HVAC system 100 feet away. And I happen to have a good friend in Reading. I spend time there in Reading, and we both talk about how the neighbor's HVAC system running all night drives us both insane, and neither one of us can sleep very well. And so I wondered, given what you said about the logarithmic scale, can you talk about what 60 decibels would be at night compared to the ambient noise levels that you found from your study? Thank you.
60 decibels compared to the ambient levels that were measured. It would be higher. It would be, well, I'm just going to go back and look at my slide. The nighttime range that we measured was between 46.1 and 53.7. So 60 decibels at night would be, on the order of 6 to 14 decibels higher. But I do want to say that we are not only going to be looking at those thresholds, the Humboldt County General Plan. We're going to be looking at the increase relative to ambient conditions, because where ambient conditions are lower, you're going to perceive the increase at a lower level. So that would also be considered an impact in the EIR. So we not only look at the regulatory standards, we also look at what would be, how would the noise from the project be perceived as an increase in noise levels.
Thank you. That's super helpful. So I think you said that an increase in 6 decibels would be a doubling of the noise levels. Is that what you said?
Well, 3 decibels would be a doubling of sound energy, but you would perceive a doubling in terms of like it sounding twice as loud would be about 10 decibels.
Okay, so this would be potentially doubling the noise levels at night. Okay, that's really helpful. That I would lose my mind, just so you all know. I would have to move. Thank you. I hope there's a good way to mitigate that kind of impact, especially at nighttime. That's really a major deal. Thank you very much.
And it looks like Sylvia has a hand up.
Hi, yeah, that's me. Sylvia, also with Humboldt Waterkeeper, and kind of following up on Jane's question about the noise of the turbines having to be turned so they don't crush those bearings, as Rob said. Jason, I'm wondering if that kind of noise is going to be factored into the noise modeling. I have a couple other questions. I'm just going to rattle them off for you real quick. You mentioned that the noise propagation through the earth or the soil, you guys make these assumptions, and in order to change those assumptions and tailor them to our area, you would need a geotechnical study, which, if I'm not mistaken, that is being done. So I'm wondering if you are working with other members of the consulting team to take their data into consideration to tailor your model to our area. And then another question I have that's kind of a combo question for you and Josh, so I recognize that you might not be able to answer this, but the diagram that Josh was showing for the wharf, from the scale that I was able to see it on my screen, it looked like there were piles going up to the shoreline rather than 1,000 feet away. So I'm just wondering if you're working with the design team to kind of model those different scenarios where there might be piles closer or farther from the shore.
Okay, if I may answer, yeah, there's a few questions in there, and I'm not sure I'm going to remember all of them, but let's see. So you mentioned something about vibration and the ground type and the geotechnical aspect. So we would, as sort of a screening analysis, we would do the conservative analysis that I was describing. That would be quite conservative. If we found that we were bumping up against a threshold someplace, then we would look deeper into the geotechnical and see if additional information would be informative. But generally, in my experience, the conservative model is quite useful for screening for impacts. If in cases where we have pile driving heavy equipment. And so, and yes, our noise model is based on the project design, the location of the piles. So all those factors are included and they would be within the model geometry. And then your first question, could you just remind me what that was?
It can help. So a question was, is the noise team using the same information as the design team? And the answer is yes. Some of the piles will be right up against the shoreline, especially the North Wharf. And that is the 1,000-foot measurement Jason was referring to. You can go onto Google Earth and see, measure the distance from the house to the shoreline exceeds 1,000 feet. So the new piles will be around 1,000. And it's also possible that Sylvia wants to talk, but once you remute yourself, you can't unmute yourself again. I've discovered.
Thank you, Rob. That was exactly the case. Yeah, the first question I asked was if the noise or infrasound or vibration of the turbines being rotated at one rotation per day was going to be factored into the noise model, like the thing that they have to be in the bay and turning so they don't damage themselves.
Yes, it would. That is something we've already started looking at.
Thank you.
And I mean, I'll just also say, as far as infrasound, that really is the interaction of wind with an operating turbine. So the testing is a completely different thing.
Thank you. And it looks like we have another hand up there. Tina Manis, thank you. Your eyes are better than mine. I'm squinting at this screen. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a resident of Samoa, and I thought that the presentation was excellent. Thank you for answering all our questions. I also was very interested in any possibility, if it appears from the baseline sound values that you've collected in Samoa, that it is, again, at least probably those 5 decibels less than the, I don't know which standards you're referring to. And I oftentimes, as I look at what are the standards for different municipalities, they build in the +5 decibel over ambient as an appropriate level to set the standards. So are you going to be doing that, or are you going to be suggesting that we use these, what is it, the 65 and the 60 decibels for day and night respectively?
Yeah, I actually answered this question previously. We would be looking at the regulatory standards, but we would also be looking at the increase above ambient levels. So relative to the places where we measured, as well as like that grid noise map that I was talking about, where we expand out the model to cover the entire community of Samoa, as well as Eureka and Arcata. We would look at the increase, and it would be based on what we measured to make a comparison, because that's really the only way we can make the comparison is when we compare it to what is measured. So, so yes, we would not only look at the regulatory standards, it would be what people would experience in terms of an increase. Would it be noticeable? Would the project construction be noticeable? Would the project operation be noticeable above ambient levels?
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't pick that up before. And then
That's okay.
our biggest demographic here in the town of Samoa is children. And you mentioned some of the health concerns that have been documented. Are there any special considerations that you want to share with us regarding the fact that probably about 200 kids live right adjacent to where this project would be out of a total population that's maybe 500 at most? Any special considerations there and concerns regarding health?
Well, I mean, the spirit of CEQA and really the regulatory standards, the compatibility guidelines is to sort of address all of these sort of things inclusively and implicitly through protecting the public from the adverse effects of noise. So I think it's kind of implicit in our analysis that it's going to be intending to identify where those types of impacts occur and mitigate and identify mitigation where that would be feasible and reasonable in these areas.
I'd just like to ask one more clarifying question, just so I understand. The noise study that you'll be conducting, will that be modeling then what the noise impacts of the project might be, and then looking at different mitigation options like sound barriers or vegetation, and how that would impact and reduce the noise so that it would help inform what type of mitigations might work best, and so it wouldn't just be looking at what the total noise would be, but like ways that it could be reduced, and try and give us a sense of like, if we do this, it would reduce it by this much. And I
Yeah,
don't,
we would. I'm sorry.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
I'm sorry. It's just, I'm just thinking, like, I don't think it's, again, if I understand correctly what it's saying, like, we're not trying to reach a certain regulatory noise. We're trying to measure what the noise impacts might be and minimize the noise as much as possible. So we're not saying because the regulatory permissible level is 60 decibels, that's our goal to reach 60 decibels.
Yes, yeah, that's really important. And also, as far as mitigation, this is a component of CEQA as we determine after mitigation, what would the impacts be? So if we don't know or we can't quantify or we're not able to meet our goals for mitigation, like if we don't get the amount of noise reduction that we expect to get, then we would say that the impact would be unavoidable after mitigation. But our goal is for impacts to be mitigatable. So so that whatever mitigation that we identify in the EIR would be designed with the intention of reducing it below the thresholds. So that would extend to both the regulatory standards as well as the increase, so that it is most effective to achieve those goals.
Thank you. It looks like Tina has a follow-up question. And again, like I was saying before, I'd like to allow, leave some leverage for follow-up back and forth. So go ahead, but I'd like to also have a consideration of the time and that, are you on the East Coast as well? So it's nice and late for you?
No.
Oh, not you, Tina. I was thinking of Josh. So, but go ahead with your question.
Okay, yes. I know we briefly in the Samoa Steering Committee talked about what some of those mitigations might be. And I realize it's premature to be asking for anything conclusive, but I know it's been mentioned, for example, like some kind of acoustical sound barrier fence, retrofitting of windows, ideas such as this. What are the ideas that are percolating to the top of possible mitigation measures, given that there will be very large and noisy activities adjacent to the residences.
Is that something that anybody's able to answer at this time, or is that what the study's meant to inform?
Yeah, the study will definitely inform that in a more meaningful way than us just kind of saying right here on the spot. But there are noise barriers under consideration, dampening of equipment. So, you can say put a generator in a box kind of thing. I don't know, Jason, you have probably more experience in the range of possibilities, but we don't have any definitive answers tonight.
Right. We don't have definitive answers, but there's definitely a range of possibilities. And I think it would start with trying to reduce noise on the site so that because it's easier to contain at the source just because of the size of the sources is smaller than further away. Noise walls are also an option being examined. And I mean, I think we would just look at what would be most feasible and reasonable for the situation.
Great, thank you. Thank you for this really interesting conversation. If there's no further discussion on that, I'll just bring it back up to the board for any closing thoughts or. All right, well, thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anything else on this status update to receive?
And no, nothing additional.
All right.
Mr. President.
Yes.
We have a public hearing tonight for a permit. It's item 11C. I would suggest that we move it ahead of item 11B, have open the public hearing for the Humboldt Bay Oyster permit, and then resume our calendar if that would be okay.
Sure. Yeah, I was just excited to move on to things that were not heavy lift marine terminal related. But so going to item C, consider approving resolution 2026-08, adopting an initial study, mitigated negative declaration, a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and establishing findings relative to and approving Harbor District permit 2023-04 with conditions for the Humboldt Bay Oyster Company Shellfish Farm.
So I have a brief presentation, and then we also have the applicant and the applicant's representative here to answer specific questions. I will keep it pretty basic and high level, and then I'm happy to answer questions. So Humboldt Bay Oyster Company, this permit is for both existing operations and a proposed expansion area. Currently, they farm Pacific and Kumamoto oysters and Manila clams for seed in Humboldt Bay in 3 locations. There's a Flepsy at Woodley Island, raft culture in Mad River Slough, and rack and bag culture within 17.8 acres in North Humboldt Bay. So the expansion areas are shown in the yellow polygons here, totaling approximately 13.9 acres. However, the total culture footprint within those areas would only total 3 acres. And the project is asking for allowing both rack and bag culture and longline culture in both the existing and proposed areas. For environmental review, a draft initial study mitigated negative declaration was circulated for public comment from February 9th to March 10th. 1 comment letter was received from CDFW. We met with CDFW staff and based on that conversation did incorporate some revisions to the ISMND. And some of those revisions included just putting an acreage to the max footprint of expanded culture areas in those expansion areas, committing to a long line spacing of a minimum of 5 feet. There will be no installation or placement of new shellfish cultivation equipment on, in, or over mapped eelgrass habitat as defined in KEMP, the California Eelgrass Management Program. The vessel transit over eelgrass will be a minimum of 2 feet over that eelgrass. And the project also included BMPs for channel buffer, herring, and waterfowl protection. And so the mitigation measures and BMPs are, the full text of those are in the staff report and meeting packet and in the ISMMD and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And the ISMND also found that there are less than significant impacts to mudflats, water quality, and cumulative impacts. The staff report and the attachments, the resolution, draft resolution, and the draft permit with the conditions are all part of the packet, as well as the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And then the ISMND and both the original draft and the revised draft and the application materials are all available on the website. And staff is recommending adopting the ISMND, the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approving the permit with conditions. And happy to answer questions. And like I said, the applicant is here too.
I move for adoption of the resolution.
I have a motion. A motion and a second. The applicant want to speak to this or? No, don't have to.
Sure.
Just wanted to make sure the opportunity was there.
Paid someone smarter.
Todd Van Herp, Humboldt Bay Oyster Company. Thank you, Vanessa and Adam, for your work on this. I've been farming on Humboldt Bay since I came here to go to school at Humboldt and Fisheries. Greg and I attended class together. Seems like yesterday. Seems like yesterday. And I got lucky and got a summer job working oysters out here. I didn't even know they grew oysters when I first moved here. And it turned into a career. There was an opportunity 9 years later to buy a part of the farm that I'd worked for. My mentor, Ted and Linda Kuiper. And since 2002, I've had my own operation and really enjoy working on the water around here and really set my roots down. And this is who I am now. Years ago, the California Coastal Commission was reviewing permit holdees or people with permits for shellfish. And when I bought in 2002 from Ted Kuiper, it was sort of like what we were doing was sort of like the permit that he got in 1978. But a coastal commission permit in 1978 is a much different coastal permit than there are today. For one, it didn't have an expiration date. And so when they worked south to north in California, I was one of the last ones to be hit up for review. When I bought, Ted and I discussed that when that does eventually happen, you'll need to update your permits. Just ask for an immaterial amendment and everything should be fine. Well, that was 2002 and it's 2026 now. In 2020, I went and had conversations with the Coastal Commission, started that application process, and then COVID hit. And for a couple of years, that permit was given back to me, asked if I would hold it and resubmit it later. And that's when this whole process started up again. So this is the first step towards obtaining the rest of my permits. And I appreciate you guys giving me the thumbs up. And we still have lots of work to do, but I appreciate this first step. Thank you.
Thank you. There's any other comments or questions from the public? If not, I'll bring it back up for a vote.
I'll say something. This is why I came to.
Oh, okay. Great.
This is why I came tonight. Sorry for my other comments, perhaps, and thanks for putting up for it. And
it's fun for us to put up with.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what the Harbor District should be supporting. I think this is a good project. This is not only a negative declaration, but I think some arguments can be made. This is a positive effect for Humboldt Bay, water quality. And I think us in the room know about those positive outcomes having these kinds of shellfish in the water here. Todd is an exemplary boat handler, shellfish grower. I think Todd grows the best looking oyster in the bay. He's got 6,000 of them ready for me for Oyster Fest. So come by our booth and have some of Todd's oysters. I couldn't support Todd more, and congratulations for getting this far, Todd.
Thank you.
That was great, Bill.
All right, you said we have someone online? Oh,
Jen
okay,
Call.
Jen.
Yeah, with her hand raised.
Hi, everyone. Jen Cult with Humboldt Waterkeeper. I just want to say that it's really great to see that this project has come this far. It's taken a long time for various reasons, but I still get questions quite a bit about like, what are the impacts of the oyster industry on the bay? And I don't often say what our full mission is, but Humboldt Waterkeeper works to protect not just the environment, but also the people's health, and the economic strength of the bay. And the Waterkeeper Alliance model was started by commercial fishermen. And so, we really strongly believe that people who are fishing, raising food in the bay, and also, swimming and, well, drinking, but you wouldn't drink Humboldt Bay, hopefully. This is really critical to getting people to care about the bay. And so, just watching the changes the oyster industry has gone through over many, many years, and being able to say, yeah, we support the oyster industry because they are strong protectors of water quality in the bay. It wasn't always that way. The environmental community had a lot of issues with the oyster industry decades ago, but things have changed a lot. And so, I'm really glad to support this project, and it's avoiding eelgrass. It's totally beneficial in so many ways, not just for the environment, but for the community, for people who want to celebrate the bay and the health of the bay, that we can actually eat raw oysters out of this bay when it's not raining. So just want to say that, publicly, because people ask us about it quite a bit. And I hope a lot of people go out to Oyster Fest and eat oysters. I just ate some at Salt the other night, and they were fantastic. They were local oysters. And I really think that we should be celebrating the oyster industry here much more than we do, as, a business model that protects the environment. And it's just, so in line with what people in Humboldt County believe. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Sure. Commissioner Dale?
Is it okay if I say something?
I don't know. What does everyone else think? Should we let them talk?
So I do have a couple questions, and thanks for Todd. This is awesome. I'm 100% supportive, but I will say, having been through this process a few times, and I didn't see any camp buffers in the document. Buffer steelgrass. Do they still have those?
That's part of camp, yeah. So it's the habitat is defined with what is actually eelgrass, and then a certain buffer area. And Adam knows more about it than I do.
yeah, there's a built-in buffer. So
yeah.
God, what is the feet? Is it how far from the habitat?
5 meters.
5 meters.
meters,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this, you end up with a 5 meter buffer from the actual plants. The way it plays out is the mitigation measure says no equipment shall be placed within eelgrass habitat as defined by Kemp. Eelgrass habitat is defined by Kemp. It's a little more nuanced, but the best I can describe it is like the eelgrass plants plus 5 meters. So by avoiding the habitat, you're actually avoiding the plants by 5 meters. It's precisely the same as Hog Island Oyster Company's mitigation measure for their more recent farm up by Mad River Slough.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so it's a 5 meter.
Okay,
Basically,
that,
from plant.
I just didn't see it in there and
Yeah.
it's typically it's expressed in that, and just that. Thanks, Adam. My second question is, I know that parcel maps in Humboldt Bay are terrible, but I would advise getting a survey done for your expansion on the west side of that, because that's a harbor district lease, and those property boundaries that come out from Samoa or from Manila end at the west side of that harbor district lease, and it doesn't go all the way to that bank. Just so we're clear. I think it's not, it had nothing, I don't care. I just know that if you do this and you go through all this process, you don't want to have that problem. So you might talk to Mike. And that, great job. Well done.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. It's a resolution, so is it another roll call?
Is Commissioner Norton,
Aye.
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale,
Aye.
President Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson absent.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we bounce back up again to 11B.
11B.
Another resolution, resolution 2026-07. A resolution authorizing the adoption of the Humboldt County Operational Hazard Mitigation Plan 2025 update.
So the Harbor District has participated, there's a previous resolution brought forward, the Harbor District is partnering with the county, the municipalities, there were 17 in total, us included, working with the county on a regional hazard mitigation plan. And this is something that is not only great to be a part of, it's ever changing. In 2022 and 2024, we had catastrophic failures in district facilities. That includes the breakwater road. That includes road challenges, otherwise road leading down to the boat launch code, as well as severe recovery and damage to the boat launching code. As you know, we applied for FEMA assistance. We're still in that process, being awarded a small amount of money for one, but with categorical three total categories for repairs. We also had our marine outfall line float when we had extreme surf and loss of beach, which often happens in the winter, and that is currently secured by a rock and bag method, with an imminent need for repair at 2020. And our district engineer working on that. We're working with Coastal Commission, the Army Corps of Engineers, and other agencies to proceed forward to get that covered by a large sand hills beneficial reuse. But in these practices, we work. You see in your packet that we have the hazard mitigation plan. Once you get in there, it specifically shows the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation District. It notes that we had significant events in these change in the content of our plan. It also outlines what improvements we can make to plan for future hazards. We're talking about things such as earthquakes, tsunamis, fires, flooding, or much worse. So I don't want to get into too much detail on it. There's a very comprehensive attachment here in terms of plan. The resolution is required for our continued participation in the larger Greater County Area Operational Plan. So staff certainly recommends adoption.
I move that we adopt resolution 2026-07.
I'll second.
Yeah, I just for runner. That Dale Norton, is that what I heard?
Sure, why don't we go Dale Norton?
Oh.
And all right, any further discussion from the board? Any comments or questions from the public or online? Still some people hanging out online. All right, then let's have another roll call. Make sure we're all here.
Yes. Commissioner Norton. Aye. Commissioner Dale.
Aye.
President Coleman.
Aye.
Mr. Ben.
All right, passes Moving on to item E. Authorize the release of an RFP for the construction and installation of certain components of a stormwater pretreatment system to be installed at the Fields Landing Boatyard.
So move.
Second.
I need to get my presentation going here. Okay.
Whew, that was quick.
Okay, so as everyone is well aware, we've had exceedance in metals, Fields Landing Boatyard for quite a number of years. So this has been an ongoing battle we've been, I don't know, played with the challenge with. We've deployed an incredible amount of best practice management for BMPs. We continue to add new levels of material, we filtering and screening. Our operator down there in Kennett, Von Rinke, who is present today for marine fabrication, continually is vacuuming, making sure that metals are put in bins and buckets, both being worked on. But we still have exceedances in our total suspended solids and our dilute solids. I think we got the TSS down. Dilution we continue to have challenge. Talking about copper, zinc, iron in some cases, occasionally we'll have oil and grease. And so in December of 23, we brought before you a request to hire SHN to design a system that will create pretreatment for our stormwater, similar to what we have for our wash water. But it has to take on a much higher volume, so much more robust system, larger in scale. As you probably remember from the prior year, it took a bit of time. We had to have consultation, find the right system. And estimates originally were thought to be 150,000. They came out at nearly 300,000. Just did not have funds to fund that project, despite the necessity to do so, our willingness to do so, and our desire to do so. As well as that, you'll remember that Riverwatch was an agency that had started litigation with the district, the operator, because of these exceedances. They were able to reach a settlement with them. Part of that was a proposed system of doing that design. We delivered that design. We're now modifying it, and we will share that with Riverwatch. In this particular case, we're going to do a system, and these are a little bit of hard drawings to follow. I'm going to try to use the little pointer here. So this area here that looks like a sideways, well, that doesn't even look like a sideways T. Anyways, the area contained in here is used for self-service of boats. So washing should occur over in this area. There is a DI over here. We could modify this plan, something great. This is where descaling happens, washing happens. This is where zincs are taken off the boats. Sanding and painting is done. Primarily bottom paint, although sometimes complete full painting is done. And that area drains right into this little square over here, and that's the sole deflection of our stormwater. And so we have done constant filtering, screening, metal absorbing boom, vacuuming, all the things that I previously mentioned. Yet we're unsuccessful. So the plan is to go ahead, and sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. This is kind of zooming in a bit. And so we're going to go ahead and install a system that we will pump to, that essentially will have upland tanks. There will be RO char filter in there, which will be a material that will greatly filter the water, make it suitable for discharge. We will have the ability to test, hold water if necessary, and potentially do batch releases, but this ultimately needs to be a flow-through system. Flow-through system, we cannot retain all of that water on site. Our district engineer could not be here to present tonight, taking care of a family matter out of the area. So what we want to do is release the RFP. We've given us prior authority to do that because it's been such a period of time. I thought it was important to bring it back to the board. We're going to release an RFP, and it's going to be kind of a hybrid bid where we're going to have all of the underground work done by a qualified contractor after receiving the bids, and qualified district staff will do the above ground portions. So it's a bit of a modified approach where we were. And what is necessitating that? It is not our desire. It is simply our financial position. There potentially are programs out there to help us with this. But the time is now, we have to get it done. And to date, we haven't found the program that does this because it's an operational thing, not a mitigation or enhancement or improvement. We've got to get to a base standard before we would be eligible for other sorts of programs. So I'm happy to discuss this at whatever length you want. I think it's pretty straightforward. We brought this to the commission enough times. I want, for the benefit of the public and the benefit of those who aren't as familiar, just to give you a little bit of history and of where we are now. I realize this drawing is a bit of an overlay. Essentially, again, we collect water in DIs, we flow it to the chambers in the system, we run it through a filtering system, and ultimately discharge it. So water does drain to a bioswale immediately adjacent and ultimately away. So that's the report.
Did you get a motion in a second?
Yes, I did. Dale made a motion, Newman made a second.
All right, any further discussion? Please.
Todd Ranky Marine. I am the tenant. I appreciate everything you guys do with you guys. We have spent unbelievable time and efforts into trying to maintain this facility to the highest standards. I've been in this business almost 36 years. I have a pretty good grip on what we do. And like I've said before, I'm not going to go on these wonderful rants. I try to get everybody to understand what I say because I don't deliver well. But we are at a point now that we have to get in front of this. If we don't get in front of this, we're going to be behind it. And if we're going to be behind it, you know what happens when we're behind something. I think that the system that they're designing is a great step in the right direction. I think that using, like Chris was mentioning, a qualified underground contractor to do the underground stuff and use their staff, and we have plenty of staff. The district has plenty of staff that's more than qualified to do it with the addition of some new people that Chris has brought on. It's a great addition. I think that with that and us being willing to help in the this is very important to me as well. Not only do we run the operation, I live on the water, I live on that. I taught that I already not we lose this, and in order to be a safe harbor, I'm pretty sure we have this. The bay is considered a military asset, and the asset, that's why there's always that's bad. Just something that's that. But back to this. I think it's a great idea. We're going to do everything that we can to be supportive of whatever we can. One addition to it, said this all along, is that I think the idea is to get in front of it before it hits the brains. And my son is out there that's vacuum thing that's going through this face with this. I know all these things. This is what I do in my spare time. Is vacuuming part of it. You can imagine that's a $3,000 vacuum that's 99.9% dust free. It's insane what we try to do here. I think as something that we could do, in my opinion, to add to this is to find a street sweeper, a vacuum street sweeper, where we can constantly be monitoring this. The asphalt's aged out. That facility's 46 years old. It hasn't been brought up to date at all. We're managing it. We're doing the best we can with your help. We're on it, but we can do better. And I think, we could find a good vacuum street sweeper, and that would take out a lot of problems, and willing to take care of it and run it and do all that stuff. One more side note. Thank you to Mindy for all of her efforts in bringing in the world. We know that she's done this before. Anything that we can do to help promote our bay in a sensible, reasonable manner, we need to bring this back in. We need to bring some life into the bay. And I think that between the fishermen, the recreation side of it, and proper management, which you guys all do, the mitigation, everything that we do, and try to be the best stewards that we can improve the bay and get some financial, get this place alive instead of watching it die. And as a lot of us know, if we don't do some of this stuff, protect our boatyard, protect our fishermen, we're not going to have it. And once we lose this, then what do we have? Yeah, it's great for the shellfish. It's great for everybody else, but there's a lot more to it. We all need to coexist. We all need to get along. And I think there's plenty of room for everybody. But first and foremost, we got to be great stewards. I'm supportive of this. Anything I can do to help my company and myself,
more than happy to do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It looks like John Call.
Hello again, everybody.
Hello again.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bad echo. Can you hear me?
We can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah, we can hear you fine on our end.
Okay. I'll make it quick. I don't have a lot of, substantive input. I'm not an engineer. I do agree with the tenant that a vacuum street sweeper would probably help a lot because we've seen that help in a lot of these situations. But I just want to say that I really support this moving forward. I hope it helps, and it may not be the be all end all, but as you know, this has been an issue that Humboldt Waterkeeper has been raising for many years since the previous executive director who basically ignored it and hoped it would go away. So thanks to Chris Mickelson for moving it forward. I know there's a lawsuit, so you didn't really have a choice, but Chris was already moving it forward before that. And I hope it works, and we'll just have to see. Thank you. Good job, everybody.
Thank you. Just probably should not say this, but I was gonna anyway. It'd be nice if there were some organizations out there that didn't just go around and finding problems to sue, and maybe just they found a problem and gave us some money to fix it. But
There's no solution. I promised Chris I wouldn't get off.
But yeah, no, I probably shouldn't have said anything either. So I'll go ahead and call the question. No, I'm asking. Wait, is this a resolution or just authorizing an RFP? So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed or abstain? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very.
All right. Looks like we're moving into budget world now. Two more items.
You can't go home.
What do you think?
Good night.
Good night. I think my kid just texted me to stay out a little bit longer.
The good news is you are required to adopt a preliminary budget on or before June 15th. So we all get to stay. I'll try to make this very painless. So right now we're going to take a look at money. It's very tight, and we have brought a very honest budget to you in the prior year. It's getting more honest every year because things are very challenging in the world, as we know. Grants are drying up and expenses are increasing, and we're seeing a large vacancy and delinquency, which is consistent in all markets. It especially hits small ports, small harbors. That's just the harsh reality of or the trade-off for the beauty we get to enjoy here. We're going to talk about Shelter Cove first. We operate a fish cleaning station down there. It does require repairs. They're getting more frequent. There's obviously an age of that. It's $1,500 is budgeted. We went over that this past year. We actually had 2 repairs, one for $1,200, and I just signed a purchase order for I think another $1,600. That's uncommon. So after those, we might be able to escape this next year. I don't know. Road maintenance is really sending a crew down there to keep the landscape up, which is basically the weeds and overgrowth, to paint the curbs and to make sure the appropriate required signage and safety signage is there. Do not have any money in there for the boat launch apron or the breakwater repairs because those are still pending with FEMA. You may know that FEMA is only giving money right now if there's potential loss of life or great hazard. So there's a big pause in FEMA. I don't know who to blame it on, probably the Golden Gorilla, but this is where we're at. The access road has been funded. We received $563,500 as a round number. There is a bit of a challenge because we've put out nearly $100,000 to get to this point. We'd like to bill for that $100,000 so we could begin the permitting process to do the work on the road. We'll see if FEMA can play ball with us. So far, no ball. We're stuck until we have those funds, and these are not funds we can go out and borrow. Moving on to Redwood Marine Terminal 1. This is another asset which is a little smaller, so a very slim budget. This is also the site of the proposed heavy lift multi-purpose marine terminal. So we continue to keep that building shored up. We have two aquaculture folks out there, one hagfish, one shellfish, as well as gear storage for our fishermen. We put an extreme amount of investment in the dock hoist and lighting in the past couple of years, as well as securing red tank dock. So we're hoping to avoid those two items this year. I keep them on there because we never know. Access road maintenance, of course, is grading and storm water patrol for the road that leads in there. So a slim budget at $4,000. We're typically at about $25,000. So you can see we're making every effort to slim that back. Finally, one of our great assets is Redwood Marine Terminal number 2, the former pulp mill. We have the need for about $10,000 additional dollars in pier and dock improvements. As you know, we've been doing quite a bit of dock board replacement there. Keep in mind, we're also going to be moving along with the demolition of the seawater intake. That's separate from this because it's a separate project and we're tying it to some other operations. But we may have to look at that in the mid-year budget adjustment. Elevated tank, we have to get an assessment on it. We have a large elevated tank that pressurizes our fire system. It has not had a structural assessment in any period of time that we can find in district records. We continue to have an incredible amount of break-ins and vandalism, so we've been replacing the fence and installing quite a bit of security lighting in and around the property. We're at a point in time where we need to paint all of our metal work and our doors around the property. Thank goodness we put stainless steel gutters up, but we need to protect those as we're starting to see rust and flaking paint. Not lead paint, by the way. Ocean outfall inspection. This is definitely a dive year. We have delayed this. Nordic Aqua Farms was always going to participate for us and pay for it. There is no more Nordic Aqua Farms, so that is probably the number one priority at this site this year. Total projects totaling $112,000. Okay. That is that item. I want to point out that because we did not have our May meeting, that would be heard in the May board meeting. Also in the report talks about port operations, administrative expenses, and payroll, general operations and staffing, and any discussion from previous budget meetings. Each one of those items are incorporated in the actual preliminary budget each year, so we can discuss those as needed in the next item. So unless there's any discussion, I would suggest that we move on to item 11G, but I do not have the authority to do that, Mr. President. You'd have to make that decision.
Okay.
Is there anyone online? They all went home. Okay. Okay. So before you is a preliminary budget. Please understand that preliminary budgets are developed by staff's estimation using the tools available to us. We used a bit different method this year. We took, rather than taking the prior year's, this darn button will not advance for some reason. Thanks. So this is the income side. There's the expense side. Obviously, we're not going to see it on the screen. You have a copy before you. But I want to point out just a few things, and they're really contained in the report, the staff report that was written. Please understand that when we estimate the preliminary budget, this is prior to working with our budget subcommittee. This year, because expenses have been on a downward trend and vacancy has been increasing over the last couple of years, and because it's a regional thing, it's not just something that's isolated at the Harbor District, we took an average from the 24-25 fiscal year, as well as the 25-26 fiscal year. We used an average weighted cost or value in there, I guess is the appropriate way to say it. And then we stressed it with expenses in certain categories, such as a capital outlay to support the things I presented to you tonight and in prior meetings. Woodley Island Marina, Fields Landing Boatyard. We stressed it with some additional expenses and then a 3% consumer price index adjustment because we seem to be somewhere around that 3% mark for the last few years. Feel good about those numbers. Keep in mind, there's a $5,400,000 gross profit. In our case, net income. The budgeting tool uses that terminology, and it's fixed in the formatting of the report. We are not going to have net income of $5,400,000. I don't want to surprise anybody.
What?
Those are grant revenues, and obviously there's a number of accounting entries that have to occur to offset those. It's as well, there's a couple of negative values in there for expenses, which really would be two negatives make a positive. Again, these are accounting items. These are things that we will go through the chart of accounts and the journals and find out what those entries are and ensure that our district treasurer books those to the appropriate areas. Whoops. Did I do that? Sorry. Overall, we're at a point where we probably are at a break even with the projects that have been proposed in our principal debt reduction. Remember that once we get down to net operating income, NOI, so we have our gross revenues minus our expenses, we get to net operating income. Interest is above the line. Depreciation is above the line. We get to add back depreciation, but then we have to pay our debt service. And the principal reduction in debt service is below the line. So we're going to be at a point in time where we have just enough below the line to pay our principal debt. The good news is I have a very dear friend I work with who's a hoarder, a money hoarder. So we are very difficult when spending money around here. Mindy is good about making sure that from our tax revenues or other reimbursements that we really keep that money tight and we try to pay our operational expenses with those revenues that are coming in on a recurring basis. So we do have some cash on hand, which will help us through this process. We do the cash analysis when we deliver the final budget. I don't know that we'll meet all of our reserves and our reserve clauses to have $600,000 of excess cash. We do because we are receiving a lot of grant funds, and so the amount of money we have on hand at any point in time is usually quite significant. But those are funds that have very specific uses and they're restricted. So while they do help in the global cash picture, that's not an operational reserve. The good news is because we were able to build a bit of an operational reserve after we paid off some debt prior to taking out a $5.5 million loan, my nemesis. We did build a little bit of cash, and so I think we're going to be able to get through this. I'm excited to bring you a much more robust budget process. Before I yield, you'll notice the staff report says consider adoption of the 26-27 preliminary budget and set a hearing date for the adoption of the 26-27 final budget. If we post this tomorrow, we have to have it circulated for 30 days before we can adopt our final budget. So we're going to have to pick a date in July for a special meeting. So calendars out.
Well, I'll move that we adopt the 26-27 preliminary budget and adopt the date. I'll second it.
And so the suggestion of staff will be July 16th. It is a very busy day, but we don't want to get too far out there because if for some reason or another we cannot adopt that budget, we have to have another special meeting. We need to allow us a bit of a window. Keep in mind today is July or June 11th. We will have to have, and the staff report also indicates that we will have up to 2 study sessions with the budget subcommittee. These are open meeting sessions because that is a subcommittee. And in those study sessions, we'll work through a number of issues in here. So we need to make sure that we do it at a point in time that gives us enough time to have those study sessions. So I think July 16th is a good date. Well, hold on a second. If it feels more comfortable to folks, we can go to the 23rd. That would still allow us a hearing on July 30th.
That we had to be done before.
We have to adopt a budget on June 15th preliminary, and we have to adopt a final budget by August 1. Actually, we have to adopt it on the 31st and transmit it on August 1st to the County of Humboldt. And Mindy, are you more comfortable with the 23rd?
Would you rather the 23rd, Mindy?
I'm happy.
I don't have it on my calendar.
Well, we haven't. You wouldn't know because we're setting that date now. That's staff talking about.
I make it the book. We'll do whatever you want, right? Yeah, whenever we want. If it's the 23rd, that is this our CTC board meeting, but then generally the verb 5:30.
We can also do a daytime meeting. It doesn't have to be in the evening, especially if it's a special meeting. I don't know who that works for and doesn't work for, but we do have that option.
The 16th?
Yeah.
So my motion stands.
Okay.
16th would be preferable. I'm fine with it. Okay.
And then we'll work directly with Commissioner Norton and Commissioner Benson. Commissioner Benson is away on travel. And
still have our regular meeting on the 9th then?
yes, we'll still have a regular meeting. We could potentially combine the meetings. I think it would be best to have our regular board meeting and then do the budget. There are a number of technical speakers lined up for July for the proposed heavy lift marine terminal. So
I do want to say too, with the service getting kind of exciting because we have 3 loans total, but 2 of them, one of them we have 6 payments left, and one we have 8 payments left of July, which is really exciting. So we're getting close to paying off 2 of our big loans, so 2029.
we did look at refunding those last year. Unfortunately, it doesn't generate enough value to go out and do something big. But if one of those pays down, it might make the difference to go out. But we're not going to go out and secure long-term debt to generate $1 million in cash. Would be a very poor business decision. Yeah, we do. We need revenue. Can't save you at a profit. You have to sell your way to a profit.
So what we should probably talk about increasing slip fees, right?
So what I heard as I take control of this meeting, I heard July 16th is going to be our date. Okay.
Will there be budget items on the July meeting, or will all the budget?
It depends what happens between now and then with the budget subcommittee.
So we're still gonna do the 9th.
We're still going to have our regular board meeting on July 9th. We would have a special meeting on July 16th.
I won't be here for the 9th.
Okay.
I will.
Sorry everybody, I'm trying to keep a little order here because this is a formal item.
Yeah, sorry.
Commissioners. So
maybe can I suggest let's put it in line and we're gonna adjourn here in a minute. Maybe we schedule the special meeting for the 16th.
Yes, we can determine.
We're gonna keep the 9th meeting or to make the 16th first.
We can adjust that date if it's prior to, especially when our ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, the 9th that I'm more concerned about, and it seems like it's a challenge for more people than the 16th. So we're setting the 16th as our adoption.
For the final budget, that is correct. July 9th currently stands as our regularly scheduled board meeting. So the motion is to adopt the preliminary fiscal year 26-27 budget and set the date of July 16th, 2026, 6 p.m. here for a special meeting to adopt the final budget. That's okay. So Dale made the motion. It was seconded by Norton.
Any further conversation? Can we keep this to that? All right. Anything from the public? All right. Bringing it back. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes. We are adjourned. And so, too bad.